Inside Afghanistan, will a hunger for learning in this poor and war-torn country be a key to peace and prosperity? What do you think of when you hear the word Afghanistan? Is it just a faraway place where a war is being fought? For some U.S. kids, it means more because they have a parent or loved one serving there. For the girl on our cover, Afghanistan is her only reality. She lives in a small village near Kabul, the capital. The terrain you see behind her tells you a lot. Afghanistan is mountainous with soil that is very dry. Only about 12% of the land can be farmed, and safe drinking water is scarce. More than half of the people are desperately poor. The United Nations 2009 Human Development Report ranks Afghanistan 181st out of 182 countries. From war to peace? The U.S. and its allies have been at war in Afghanistan since October 2001. U.S. officials said then that the Taliban, Afghanistan's repressive ruling militia, was sheltering Osama bin Laden. Bin Laden had masterminded the September 11, 2001 attacks on New York City and Washington, D.C., which killed nearly 3,000 people. U.S.-led forces didn't get bin Laden, but they did oust the Taliban from power. However, the Taliban has since retaken control of large parts of the country. As the years passed and the death toll rose, American support for the war faded. Yet President Barack Obama, obviously this article is a smidge old, recently pledged 30,000 more U.S. troops to the fight. Many Americans object to this commitment. Among their concerns, the U.S. military has been overstretched by 2 wars. Besides Afghanistan, U.S. troops have been fighting in Iraq since 2003. The president says that the Taliban must be driven out because it would continue to support terrorists who want to kill Americans. Troops alone cannot stop the Taliban. Obama wants to increase aid for Afghan civilians to provide services. That can make an immediate impact in their lives. Greg Mordison has another idea. Promoting peace with books, not bombs. To learn more, read on. A startling discovery. In 1993, American Greg Mordison tried to climb K2, the world's second highest mountain. His failed attempt started him on a remarkable journey. Mordison recovered from his expedition in a remote, poverty-stricken village in Pakistan. While there, he noticed the children's hunger to learn and promised to build them a school. As described in the best-selling book, 3 Cups of Tea, he fulfilled that promise in 1996. Since then, Mordison has built 130 other schools in Pakistan and Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, the Taliban had tried to suppress learning, especially for girls. A girl caught studying in secret risked death. Despite great odds, Afghan children still strive to learn. In the following passage from his new book, Stones into Schools, Mordison describes a startling discovery that he made while in Afghanistan in 2004. Boris was kind enough to offer Mulin Mohammed and me a ride. We were about an hour west of Baharak, just outside the village of Simdara, when I looked to my right and saw an old earthen hut 20 yards from the side of the road that appeared to be filled with children. Would you mind stopping? I asked Waris. I think there was a school back there. Waris and Mulin Mohammed both laughed. No, Greg, that's actually a public toilet, he explained. Waris kept driving. That might be true, Waris, but it seemed to be full of kids. What were they doing there? We need to go back and find out. When we go back to the hut, I got out, walked over to the open door and peered in. Sure enough, it was a toilet, or at least it had been at one time. The roof was now gone, and the 4 toilet pits had been covered by old boards. There were 25 children between 4 and 5 years old, plus 1 teacher, and a slate board leaning against the wall. The students were quite happy to chat with Waris, Mulin Mohammed and me about their class and their curriculum. After about 10 minutes, the teacher asked if we might like to see the rest of the school. We nodded and followed her up the hill. Just over the crest, at a spot that was invisible from the road, were a pair of tattered refugee tents, each of which featured a single chalkboard and at least 30 children, all of whom were sitting on the ground. These students were a little older, 2nd and 3rd graders. After a few minutes of chatting, one of the 2 teachers turned to me and asked, "Do you want to see our upper school? By all means, please lead the way." Down the other side of the hill was a structure that appeared to be an old tool shed. It was slightly larger than the toilet, perhaps, 10 feet wide by 18 feet long, and very dark inside. It was also quite noisy, because nearly 100 students were packed in like sardines. These were the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, and according to the 2 women who were teaching them, they were doing extremely well. although it might have been helpful to have some books, some paper, and some pencils. This was my introduction to the education system serving the region of Simdara, an area with a population of roughly 4,000 people. The students had neither books nor school supplies nor uniforms, and the teachers had not been paid in more than 2 years. We were forced to get back on the road and catch our plane, but I later called the local education office. The officials said they had never heard of the Simdara School District, but they would be delighted if we would consider putting in a proper school for the valley.